All right. So welcome to Lecture 1. Now I'm going to explain why I call this Lecture 1 when I get into what I offer in terms of my course. But this lecture is really to understand the INCOSE certification process. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So for this webinar, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what system engineering is, what INCOSE is, about the certification for a system engineering professional that INCOSE provides. And we'll review the key requirements necessary to get certified. One of the main things is the application. We're going to go deep into that. And then we're going to talk about what does it mean to take this exam that they talk about. INCOSE is a little different than most organizations. They ask you just to kind of take an exam and maybe have a application that maybe not be too difficult. A lot of people actually feel the INCOSE application is actually more difficult. So we'll get in and cover that as we go along here. Who am I? I'm Paul Martin. I'm an expert system engineering professional. I was able to get that through INCOSE. But prior to me coming to that, I actually had a CSEP for about 5 years. Part of that is getting a CSEP required taking that exam, and I did it so early in the process, there was no resources available. And I kind of made it my life goal to actually give help to people as they are getting ready to be certified by INCOSE. I've been in INCOSE, a member since 2000. I think I've been an engineer longer than I hate to admit, you know, back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, starting out. Really cut my teeth on system engineering through DoD, through the Navy, with the acquisition process, getting a DWIA acquisition cert for that. I also am a teacher, a professor for UMBC, where I teach some graduate courses on system engineering. I also have a certified technical training certificate as well. Okay. I've been teaching this. Actually, I started the course. I got my CSEP probably in 2006 or so. And I've been teaching this class since 2009. And of course, I've made a lot of changes in all that time, especially as I've noticed how students reacted to the training. So I think I've gotten pretty good at it. Again, the whole idea is to be preparing for the exam. So before we get started, let's talk about what system engineering is and why we need system engineers. As a matter of fact, I'm also an IEEE member, and I get their Spectrum magazine. And years and years and years ago, prior to me even teaching this course, there was a great quote in there, and I highlighted it and said, yes, that's what system engineers do. And basically what it talked about is that another factor contributing to program failure is this shortage of technically trained people, especially system engineers. And it's usually that system engineer that translates that technical need into the overall arching, system architecture that can best make that operational capability a real within an affordable cost. And so as the project proceeds and things start to shift around, it's a system engineer who looks at the cost schedule and mainly the performance, right? in using those trade-offs. So as the programs get bigger and more complex, you'll find yourself needing more and more rigorous system engineering in order to help you. And so a lot of you may actually be in a scenario now that you're actually finding yourself in the midst of a huge amount of other system engineers. And it's all because there's much more complex aspects here. One of you asked if this context is going to be recorded. It will be, and I'm going to show you how they can access the recording as well as we go forward. One of the things we're proud of, this was way back when too, but CNN Money did say system engineering was ranked #1. Now, it does mention the CSEP at that time. That's all they offered. They now offer an ASEP and an ESEP as well. But this actually talks about the need for system engineers. And a few years ago, John Thomas, who's was actually a member of my local INCOSE chapter, he became president of the international chapter, and he wrote this great paper on how system engineers are problem solvers. And he said across the organization, products and services, system engineers also provide critical leadership because they're the ones who integrate those technical activities that are necessary for large, complex projects. And they have the skills to influence multidisciplinary teams to reach out, to reach that consensus on how a system solution should come together. So as problem solvers, we try to focus as system engineers on that outcome, not just the process. Now, there is a process to get to that outcome, but it's the outcome is the main thing. And that's where system engineering comes into play. So what is INCOSE? We're about 18,000 members, 74 chapters, 55 working groups, and almost 3,500 people certified. INCOSE is a not-for-profit organization that's trying to push system engineering as kind of this solution aspects to the world's problems, actually. Any organization that has issues and are trying to make systems need system engineering. So their mission is to address that complex social technical challenges by enabling, promoting, and advancing system engineering and system approaches. Basically trying to make a better world through the systems approach. They've been around since 1990. They kind of were formed. About 5 years after that, they became international. Like most organizations, they have a lot of products that they produce. One of the big things is this symposium, where every year they have all their members and system engineers come together to give talks on system engineering and round tables and things like that. It's a great time. If you ever get a chance to go, of course it was virtual this last go around, but it may open up in the next few years. It'd be well worth going to. They also have a journal for system engineering talking about just the academic side of system engineering. They have a members magazine, Insight, which is a real practitioner type magazine for those system engineers that want to learn about the latest system engineering trades and trends that are out there. Also, INCOSE is part of working with, oh my God, what's it stand for? Oh yeah, the Object Management Group. They do systems modeling language. And of course, they have a handbook, which we'll get into much more later. And one of the other products they have is this INCOSE certification program. And that program actually is multi-level. It acknowledges a system engineer as a professional. And they do that via this very formal method. And I'm going to kind of get into that through this presentation. So what is that certification process? Well, first of all, you should know that a certification is not a certificate. I've actually had people go through my course and they say, by the way, I have to show my employer that I actually finished this course. Can you give me a certificate? So I can give somebody a certificate for passing my course. That, of course, doesn't make them a system engineer or prove that they can do system engineering. And by the way, a certificate's not so much a license. That's something that a state would provide perhaps to a professional system engineer. So there are people with a SEP, like a CSEP or an ESEP, that may be professional engineers as well. So they're totally different. What a certification does, it confirms you're getting a external organization to confirm that you have the experience and the knowledge to do system engineering, and that you are a qualified placement if they decide. You may actually find some jobs out there would prefer that you have this certification because they do need a system engineer that they can kind of trust and be able to go through the processes necessary. Now, the fact we do this certification, and you've probably seen this with other professional organizations, Project Management Institute is out there. As a matter of fact, they have a PMP. Actually, if you have a PMP, go ahead and type that either into the chat or raise your, or give me a thumbs up in front using the reaction remote emoji. Because I do find that there are people who actually are PMPs, they also get their SEP. It's a nice strong two certifications to have. But PMI, they do their certification, the International Information Systems Security Consortium certification. They have a certification. IEEE, Computer Society has a certification. Most organizations have certifications dealing with the profession that the organization's there. INCOSE is not much different than that. And we find that with this INCOSE certification, what we're trying to do is actually show the system engineering community does have some standards that they identify, processes that are used, that there is knowledge that can be kind of baselined for other system engineers to use. And of course, as a professional yourself, you now have this kind of recognition, standard of recognition that you can provide to your employee and show them that you indeed do understand and can perform system engineering as they need. And organizations, they would love to have their employees certified because they already have processes in place. So the company is certified for the processes. Well, if you have employees that are certified to understand those processes and do it, it makes that capability of having a system engineering capability even stronger. So you'll find a lot of companies want to get their employees certified. Now, in INCOSE, they have this multi-level aspect to certification. You can come straight out of college and get this part over here that actually talks about what a ASEP, which is an associate system engineer. After about 5 years and you show yourself actually working system engineering kind of functions, you can get a CSEP or a certified engineering professional. And then it maybe after 20, 25 years and some leadership capability, you may want to become an ESEP in this. So some multi-level credentials. They're for every stage of your career. And by the way, you don't have to progress through this one after the other. You could actually, if you're already 20 years into it, you may actually want to go ahead and get your ESEP if you can. Or if you're 5 to 10 years into being a system engineer, get your CSEP. But if you are just starting out, maybe get your ASEP, and then you can build on that. After 5 years, get your CSEP, and then of course, after 20 years, get your ESEP. So it just depends where you are in your career to figure out which one would be best to use. Now, there's about 3,700 certified system engineers out there. It seems like a lot. They've been doing this since 2004, I believe. But when you think about what PMP does, they actually have almost 1 million certified credentialed PMP individuals. Here we have this little measly 3,700 here. So, so with that in mind, you should understand getting your system engineering professional certification is kind of a niche, very rare scenario. We want to make it much more people out there. It'd be good for every good program manager to have a system engineer by themselves, a certified system engineer by their side. But it is a kind of a rare thing that we do. All right. Oh, let me first talk about this ASEP and what that is. That's an entry level. That's actually towards people who maybe just got out of college or maybe 1 or 2 years in the system engineering track that they may be on with their company. And basically all they're asking you to do is say your name, give them their money, and pass the exam. Actually, you'll find that the exam is very similar to the exam that's actually used for the CSEP. It's the same exam, actually. So it's the same exam used for the ESEP as well. So let me show you kind of what this looks like, the process of getting your ASEP. Very simple. You submit this simple application that you says, here I am. You also need to be a member of INCOSE, but you submit your application fee, you get notified, go ahead and take the exam. You take the exam, and if you pass, boom, you have an ASEP, and it's good for 5 years. What they want to do is try to get system engineers straight out of college to get their ASEP so that they can start kind of making sure their career path is such that they can actually put in a CSEP application after 5 years. Let me just make sure there's, okay, looks good. You probably see me looking over there. I'm trying to look at my slides and they're over there. So it looks like I'm looking away. I should be looking this way, but I'm not seeing anything. So anyway, it's weird the way they flipped it so you can see me. All right, so what about CSEP? A lot of you might be trying to go for a CSEP because that's the one that shows you actually are experienced and you have the ability to do some of these system engineering functions we're going to talk about. So you do need to have not only the experience, but you need references. We'll talk about that. When we get into the application, we'll talk about what all this means as you would do it. So a really thorough application that shows that you've done 3 system engineering functions over those 5 years, 1 function for 3 of those functions for 1 year each. So we'll get into that when we get into application. You also need references, at least 3 references to say that, yes, they were there and saw you do system engineering. And you have to be a INCOSE member to join. And after 3 years, you need to re-up. So they do expect you to get professional development as you're going in, and we'll talk what a PDU, what you need there in order to re-up. For a CSEP, it's a little more complicated. As you can see, not only do you go over here and get your application together, but you need some references as well. So there are things you can do in parallel as you're doing this. You can go ahead, get your application together, get your references together, and then go ahead and maybe take the exam while the references are trying to get their paperwork in. So there is this parallel track that you can have. Now, once the INCOSE has all that information, they'll go ahead and see that the references are there, that you passed the exam. They'll look at your application, of course, make sure you meet their criteria, and lo and behold, boom, you have this 3-year certification. It's good for 3 years. Once you start the process, you have a year to pass it, get through. You would think that isn't difficult. I've actually had one of my friends was trying for it. He actually decided to wait until the review was done before taking the exam, but the references took so long, he actually was forced to take the exam rather quickly because his 1 year was almost up. So you may want to try to parallel those things as you go along. Now, I do have students who really want to just get the exam out of the way. They're like, I know the application takes a while, but can I just get the exam out of the way? Well, you can, but you need an application that INCOSE agrees with before they can give you permission to take the exam. So one of the things that some of my students have done is they go ahead and get their ASEP. So the ASEP, you put your money in, put your name in, they give you the permission to take the exam, they pass it, and they get that ASEP. And then from there, they go ahead and actually start their application. Just take their time. After a year or two, get everything together, and then submit it. It's a little extra cost because you're going from an ASEP to a CSEP, but you know, it's worth it if you're worried about the exam, because once you pass the exam, you never have to take it again. It actually is carried with you when you go to the CSEP. So it's a one and done type thing. The only time you would have to take it again is if your membership expires and you want to get your certification again. Then you may have to do it, but you can talk to the INCOSE people and find out what you want to do there. All right. All right. The ESEP or the expert system engineering professional, I'm not going to get into too deeply here because it's for those, you don't need the exam, and I teach how to pass the exam. So what's interesting about the senior level, they're not interested in you passing the exam, but they do want to know if your application is true. So they actually will call your people, your references, and verify the things that are on your application. Your application is a lot more extensive. They need at least 10 years of experience, and they want to see about 6 of these functions at 1 year each. And it's good as long as you're a member of INCOSE. So that's kind of nice. They figure, hey, 20 years is a long time to be doing this. You know, your PDUs and things like that may not necessarily be necessary. Of course, it's always good to learn. I know even me as an ESEP, I still take classes. So that's the ESEP. Now, there are organizations that have streamlined their CSEP. Now, what I'm going to be talking about is mainly the CSEP application and people trying to get their CSEP, because ASEP kind of is fairly easy. ESEP is for when people are a little bit further along in their career. So I'm trying to really push the CSEP. And a lot of companies, same thing. They're like, you're an experienced system engineer. Let's get you passing this exam and get your application in. So they do these streamlined applications. They've worked with INCOSE to get these this process streamlined. So basically what that might mean is the company will review the application before it's submitted. So INCOSE is sure that all the tick marks are there, that the application is done correctly. And also, you might only need 2 references because the company will kind of vouch for you as well. If you feel one of these companies is one that you work with, go ahead and click on this. I'll give you these. I'll show you how to get these slides. But go ahead and click on this this link, and it'll actually take you to the agreements. Under there, you'll actually see the individuals who are the ones that that are the POC for the certification. Contact them within your company, and they'll tell you what you can do in order to get certified through the application. Okay, let's talk about what these key requirements. I'm kind of talking in these vague terms about certification and things like that. Let's kind of get into the details. Basically, the key requirements are knowledge, and that's where the exam comes in. Experience, that's your application, of course, and education. Now, if you notice here, for the ASEP, they just want to know, did you pass and get a technical degree, and can you pass the exam and you can get your ASEP. Notice that the CSEP, it's all three. You need experience, knowledge, and education. But for the leadership and all, that's really for the ESEP. So basically what I'm going to do is just kind of talk about experience, knowledge, and education. So the first thing, let's talk about the education. It's very straightforward. It's just a technical bachelor's degree or some kind of equivalent in some engineering fields. Now, and that means aeronautics, you know, electrical, nuclear, whatever you're in, or other fields of study like chemistry or computers or physics, math even. So if it's a technical degree, they do kind of feel you can do that. Now, you may say to yourself, well, I have a lower degree, a bachelor's degree, perhaps in art or something like that, but I got my technical degree as a master's. That's good. So just submit the master's. It doesn't matter as long as it's a technical degree. Now, this is what's funny about that is, of course, I had a master's in system engineering. I gave them my bachelor's. I showed them my master's. They were like, well, we don't care about the master's. You already met that criteria. So just understand, they're just looking for the criteria. Sometimes I'm sure you want to show them how well you've done, but they're just looking for the criteria. Now, the master's came into play for me to get my ESEP. Then it became very important. All right. So if you find that you may have a funky degree that you're not quite sure, contact INCOSE. They're very open to that. It's a small organization, so they're very good about getting back to people who have questions. Now, sometimes you find yourself, oh, I don't have a degree, but I've been doing this for years. That's good, because if you don't have a degree, you can just add maybe 10, not maybe, but add 10 more years of experience, and then they'll be able to take that on. If you don't have a degree at all, like a high school education or something, no problem. It's 15 years experience. You're getting close to the ESEP realm at this point, but you'll be able to get your CSEP for that. All right. Now let's talk about experience, and this is where we're going to talk about the actual aspects of the certification, because how do they know that you've had this experience? So what they've done is they split up system engineering into 14 functional areas, and they have technical competencies. That's where you're actually doing the V of the system engineering, where you're doing architecture, or you're doing design work, or you're doing implementation, or you're verifying, validating, you know, doing test type things. Whatever it is, that's system engineering technical competencies. Now, the other thing is management competencies from a technical realm. So those are like technical planning or configuration management, things like that. Also, support competencies like life cycle definitions and managing life cycle processes, specialty engineering and things like that are very helpful. And then there's the all-encompassing other if you need well. So successful candidates need to kind of show this balanced aspect and experience in multiple areas. So what I did is and of course I don't expect you to read all this, but you should look at the attachment A that comes with your application. So in the application, there's an attachment A that's on it, and it describes what every function and what it does. One of the reasons you want to read those is, number one, you need to figure out what part of your experience are you going to pull out and put on the application, and what functional area will that experience fall under. So when you write up what your experience was, you may want to try to use words that are similar to the words that they use to describe what that function is. So we have things like requirements engineering, systems verification, validation, operation and maintenance, and then planning, CM, risk is another thing, specialty engineering and the like. Now what they're looking for is a minimum of 5 years, but they want to see at least 1 year for each for 3 or more of those 14 areas that are in there. So they want to confirm that, and so what they want you to do is write it up in the application. I'm going to show you what an application looks like. And then they're going to ask your references. Your references need to write up their aspects that they've indeed seen you do these functional areas. So let's go and actually look at kind of what this means. Now, what I have here is the fact that you have, these are kind of options on your experience. So let's say you have 5 years experience and you've done very simple tasks. So let's say year 1, you did configuration management. That's great. So year 1, you show you for a year, you've done configuration management. For year 2, you did requirements management. Great. That's wonderful. And then years 3, 4, and 5, you did, let's say you went into the testing realm. So you're doing verification and validation. If you show that you've done that, lo and behold, that's 3 within 5 years, 1 year each, right? As you're doing it. But notice that that 3-year thing can actually be broken up into 1 year and 1 2 years. Now you have 4 functions that are 1 year each. Most likely what you would get is maybe 1 year each of a function, and then you have all these little 4-month, 5-month things for everything else. And they actually like that when you do it. So I'll explain that as we go along into the application itself. So the application, you just download it on the website. And what you'll get is the actual application. It's a Word document or a PDF that you go in and you fill out. There are instructions on how to fill it out, of course. You should there's this letter to kind of inform your references, what you're trying to accomplish and what they need to do. And of course, they need the form, and you may want to send it to them. They fill it out and they email it to the proper address, and it's in there where they need to email it. Now, what I suggest you do is take 5 colleagues and former bosses or your present boss and actually ask them, hey, would you mind being a reference? Now, keep in mind, these references have to have system engineering knowledge. So if you do your program manager, try to obtain from him that he did do system engineering in a formal life. If that's true, ask him or her to go ahead and emphasize that within the application that they fill out. Because in this reference form that they fill out, they actually have to have a paragraph or 2 where they have to explain why they understand system engineering. So that's an important part of this. So it's not so much their job title. They want to see that they have experience in those areas that you saw. So I put in some email suggestions. You go, hey, remember me? We did that great project XYZ, and I did all this type of system engineering. Wasn't that great? Hey, would you mind being a reference? Something like that. So it's a good idea to get this early and start trying to figure out who you're bringing on board. Now there's experience to a matrix that I'm going to show you. What they do is they take the experience, they throw it in the matrix, and then over different work environments, it may actually add up to 12 or more months in a single area, and that's good. So this matrix is a good way for you to figure out if you meet their criteria. So basically what they do is you pull down the application, you start filling it out. Notice here I'm filling out the actual name and the position I'm in. So this is experience position 1. They'll take the dates that you've been there and they'll say, oh, that's 23 months. They'll figure that out. The reason they do that is in the next slide, you'll notice down here, it'll say 23 months. They want to make sure that when you say you've done all this system engineering, that it's not more than that. That's all they're trying to do, because it gets a little tricky trying to figure out how long or how much you've spent in these various functional areas. So basically what I explained to you is you should go ahead, say, oh, I've done 10 functional areas within this 2 years experience. About 20% of that was requirements engineering. So then 20% of 2 years, it's only a few months. So you wind up saying, okay, I did 3 months here. And do the same for everything else. So just try to figure out what your percentage was as you're doing it. Now, each of these months will actually be flipped over into the actual matrix, and then they'll add that up and see if it's less, and they'll add across like that, because what will happen is once you go across, you're like, oh, right here, I had 21 months. Well, that's more than 12, right? I had 23, that's more than 12, 18, more than 12, 14, more than 12. So this person had 5 functional areas where they had more than 12 months. They meet the criteria. The only other criteria that's important is down here. This should be more than 5 times 12. So once they see that and they see that you have the experience they're looking for, lo and behold, you've met the criteria. All right. Now, let's talk about the knowledge exam, okay? Basically what it is, the knowledge exam is based on this handbook that you can buy. And this is version 4. It's 2 hours long, and they actually say it in their Q&A on the website. They recommend to study the current handbook because it's the reference to the exam. The exam's 2 hours long. It's 120 questions. Only the 100 questions matter, but they throw in another 20 in order to test out some new language or the way they're trying to work it to see if it works. It's pass fail right away. You have to go to Prometrics to get it done. So that's a third party. You actually pay to take the exam. The exam is identical for both the CSEP and the ASEP. And this is a good representation. If you guys don't mind going into the chat, I would love to see if you guys can actually make this work. So here's how the exam questions work. Usually there's 5 answers and only 3 are correct. Only 3. Partial credit's not given. You have to pick the correct 3. If you correct any of them wrong, the whole question is wrong. So let's take an example here. Which 3 of the following methods are expressed as a functional behavior. Choose 3. So you go down here and you tell me which one it is. Oh, Todd, you were fast. You were ahead of me here. Now everybody's going to copy you. All right, everybody look at what Todd put in the chat and see if you agree with him. Is it the network tree? Is it the functional IDEF functional modeling? And is it allocated requirements diagram? Okay. Now, remember, it's expressing functional behavior. And that's where I think a behavioral diagram and a functional flow diagram may actually be more apt to it. So I would actually hazard to guess that it's probably one of those. So keep in mind what you find out. Todd, you did get it wrong. You were doing it really quick. But I do find the best way to do this is actually look at the question and go, well, what are the wrong answers? Because remember, 2 are wrong. And if you could figure out which 2 are wrong, then the other 3 will come out. And then it kind of verifies it. So one of the things you may try to do is actually say network tree. How's that show function? It doesn't. So scratch that out. You say behavioral is good. Down here, functional flow is good. Now you have 2 that you need to decide which one is right. So let's see if Todd was right. Anybody else want to give it a try? Anybody? All right. See if you're typing. Okay. I'm going to say, yep. Okay, and I got it right. It's B, E, and F. Good time, Reginald. Allocated requirements document, diagram, I've actually never heard of what that was. That's kind of something they made up, most likely. And the same with the 3 justifications for CM. You look at it and go, well, what does this do? It probably facilitates communication. That's true, but maybe it's forces change evaluations. So that's one thing CM does. Does it prevent requirement changes? No. So you can scratch that out. Does it control it? Yes, it does. Does it encourage it? No. So maybe C and E, so maybe it's A, B, and D, right? So that's one way you can go through is look at the answers and see if they're wrong ones. That's one way to go about it. Anyway, there's 120 and they're all very similar. And the reason I make a big deal about this is I give you practice exam questions that I made up from this book. And it just gives you an idea of how to get comfortable with the structure. You may say, well, Paul, how do you know? Number one, I showed you what they said in the function in their frequently asked questions. They actually say it up here, what they're like. And they also have some sample questions. Now, what's funny about this thing they put out is they're terrible questions. And they say that. They say, look, these questions we would never put on an exam because they're terrible, but it does give you a good sense of the structure and what they're looking for, you know. So that's one of the reasons they do that. All right. So how do you get this handbook? You know, what's the thing? Well, you can get a hard copy like this. You go to Wally up there, and it'll actually, you can actually go in and order it through the Wally store. They actually sell it. Or you, as a INCOSE member, you can go ahead and actually get a digital copy. You go to the store here. Let's go ahead and pick that up. Let's see if it'll actually bring it up. All right. And what it does is, of course, you have to sign in. So that's, I didn't do that, sorry. But you have to sign in, and you actually go in and select the up here your system engineering soft copy as you're doing that. So you purchase it, you add it to your cart, and then you say, I want to buy it. Of course, zero money. And what happens is they send you an email where in that email will be an actual link that will allow you to get a PDF. You should check your spam folder because it is coming from a store at incose.org, and your spam may freak out. But do pull that up, and you'll be able to pull the PDF in that way. Now, I do have a suggestion. If you do this, and if you don't have this, maybe take the PDF to Staples and go ahead and make a nice spiral 8.5 by 11, and you'll be able to study that way if you need that tactical. Of course, you can always read it on your pad if you have a pad or a cell phone. That's the other way to do it. So, preparing for the exam, how do you do that? Study the handbook, basically. Now, here's the problem. The handbook is dry, and it's sometimes it takes a while to try to understand where it's coming from. So what I suggest, and this is from my humble opinion, is you sign up for my course, okay? Because my course, what I do is I teach all 31 processes within the context of all the processes, which is not something you'll probably get from the handbook. And I also provide all these quizzes that you can try. I even allow you to take a 120 question test on 2 hours just to give you that idea, you know, I can do this type thing. And I tell you the truth, when you're done, you actually have a better feel for your profession in terms of what you're doing. It's a real good fundamentals in system engineering because that's what the handbook's all about. All right. So what I do is when you sign up for my course, I give you access to this learning management system called Canvas. And in there, you'll get all the quizzes, you get all the material that you needed, and you get all these recordings. I recorded these a few years ago, but they're still good. They talk about the handbook, and I go through all the chapters of the handbook. Now, it is weird because I do actually teach the handbook inside out, and there's a reason for that, and I'll explain here. I have this comprehensive process flow diagram that I teach, and I meant to have that ready. Let me see if I can go back and find it real quick. Apologize. You can see that. Okay, let me pull this up. Meanwhile, let me do this. Okay, there's, so basically I have an 8.5 by 11 aspect to this that you can print out. I provide you a PDF, and you can print out, or you can actually, here we go. There we go. And sorry about this, guys. Here we go. All right, let me pull that over here so you can see it. So basically what I do is I actually provide you with this diagram and as a PDF. So what you'll be able to actually do is actually go in and actually be able to go in rather closely in it, and you'll actually see that I actually have all the inputs up here are inputs going in, and those have outputs going out. And so this diagram, this is just one of 35 of these, are all based on the actual handbook diagram. So when you go in and you see a diagram like this, when you read that diagram, I actually put it on this chart, everything that's on that diagram. So the students find this very helpful as I'm trying to explain from, we actually build the chart from the very beginning. I actually build it with the life cycle model here and go all the way to the actual disposal. And we build the chart one process at a time. And by the time you're done, you will understand this chart. I know it looks busy. Absolutely understand that. Because you're looking at it with fresh eyes, you're not quite sure what you're looking at. But what I do is I actually teach in such a way. Let me make this big again. Oops, didn't mean to do that. All right. Basically, what I do is I teach in such a way that I start with chapter 7, dealing with the organization here and all the organization ones. And then I move into contracts and talk about the agreements that can be made. And out of the agreements, a project is made. And that's what all these down here are, is all the project enabling aspects of a thing. And then in the middle here, this V is all the technical processes. So I go from chapter 7 to chapter 6 to chapter 5 to chapter 4. And I end with chapter 4. If you're reading this handbook from chapter 4, by the time you get to chapter 7, you're probably saying to yourself, why do we have human resources again? What's going on? So it does help you give context in terms of what system engineering is all about. All right, so that's my comprehensive process flow diagram. So I provide that. I also have these quizzes as well as the 120 question exam. I do have a sample quiz that I'm going to show you how to get access to that so you can try it, see what it's like. And basically what I do is I split it up into actual like classes. So I have one class that, that deals with the first 3 or 4 chapters, first 3 chapters. And then the next one, it's actually the first 2 helps cover the first 3 chapters. Then chapter 4, I actually start getting into chapter 7, chapter 6. And then by chapter 5, 6, 7, and 8, we actually start getting into the technical processes. Now, notice over here, I have class 1. That's what you're in right now, this webinar. But I want to give you something that gives you a little bit more aspects to this, and that's to actually try before you buy. Now, if you're convinced everything I showed you, go ahead and go to sescholar.com and hit the buy button up here, buy now. Click purchase, and lo and behold, it'll come up and you can buy the video. And you can see how much it is there. But if you go ahead and actually put a discount code of SE-rules, I'll take $50 off the regular price. All right. Now, you may not be totally convinced, and I don't blame you. You know, it's a lot of money. Although you'll find this cheaper than most other exam prep courses. I also have a try before you buy thing. So basically what I do, if you go into, let me pull my, there we go. So if you go into my website and hit the thing called free, I actually talk about that you can do a try before you buy. And basically what I do is I allow you to go into a special webinar 1 Canvas, so you can actually check Canvas out, see what that's like. I provide you a sample quiz and a copy of the study guide. Now you can sign up here, but in order to do that, in order to make it easy for you, if you're interested in this, if you look down below, you'll see under the more, you'll see a poll, and you'll see a try before you buy. And I'll leave that on. And if you're interested in that, just hit that. I'll use your web, the email address you gave me. I believe it'll tell me who you are. At least I hope it will. And of course, you can go into the chat as well and say, hey, I want want to be part of this. If you think one of your friends would want to be in this as well, let me know. I should show you, and I meant to have this up and running. Sorry, let me go into here and go to student view. This is kind of what it looks like when you go in. The pages will actually allow you to go in and actually see the video that I'm putting up now. All my help aspects that I have there have a sample quiz if you want to read my experience and how to get the handbook. So a lot of good stuff there as we're going ahead. So definitely worth trying out as you go in. Okay, so let's wrap this up. That's the knowledge. So we've now given you the ability to fill out an application, pass the exam, and of course you have to get your references together, and they have to fill out things, and they have to submit things as well. Now, which level is right for you? It's up to you. Where are you at in your career, and where are you going? Remember, ASEP and CSEP, you do need to pass the exam. If you're a lot older, ESEP may be something you may want to look into. Let me know if that's the case, and if you want to talk a little bit, I can at least explain what my experience was. Okay, and these show you the elements that you need for a CSEP. By the way, a lot of people ask, how long does it take? They do ask you to do this in a year, and sometimes I find some students are like, wow, you know, how I need it like in 6 weeks. How can I do it? That would be difficult, but you can do it because a lot of this is dependent on you as an application. So we'll definitely do that as well. So, so the application is dependent on you. You could do that fast. They'll turn around the application in 2 weeks, and you can go ahead and take the test. But your references may take a while, so that usually can really drag it out. But on the average, once everything is together, the INCOSE can put that around. And of course, you schedule the exam. That takes a while too. So on the average, it actually can take a good 200 days, so several months of doing this. I find most people trying to get a weekend, you know, just I need a weekend to dive into my resume and divide it up into these functions. It can take time to do that. All right. Oh, by the way, once you have it for 3 years, you do need to think about your PDU. So I suggest you bring that educational log, maybe make a Google Doc out of it. Every time you go to a lecture for INCOSE or IEEE meeting, write it down. That'll give you towards getting enough PDUs. It's 120, which is twice as much as a PMP. I want you to know that because we're twice as good, right? So we're doing this. And this shows you kind of the renewals they have for you. All right. And by the way, there's ways, one thing that you can do, let me go back, is get involved with a society like INCOSE and go to our lectures and things like that. Wherever you're located, there's probably a local chapter. So go on the INCOSE website and look for chapters. Attending those are a good way to network, but the lecture is always fun, and it's a good way for you to get a PDU, 1 PDU out of that as you're doing that. Of course, if you write a book or something, you can get a good 30 PDUs out of that. So things to consider as you advance your things. All these forms are on the website. Just download them. You're good to go. All this information that I gave you is with INCOSE. They actually have it. It's under their resources that you can pull that up. And reach out to Courtney. She's very good about this. She can answer a lot of those little sticky questions you might have. I'll try to do my best, but we kind of do that. Okay, so that's where I am at. Any questions? I really want to thank you. I know this took some time. John, you're right, a lot of Medtronic. I'll send you that information separately. I have a lot of non-Medtronic people here as well. I'd like them to use the SE rules, but for your company, we'll work with you separately on that. All right. I think the poll, let me check the poll out. I think a lot of you have wanted to go ahead and sign up. About 11 of you did. I'll go ahead and you'll get an email from me saying thank you for signing up, and it'll have access to that Canvas page so you can see what it's like. All right, is there any other questions? If you take the class, will you agree to be a reference? No. Good try, Dustin. I like that. By the way, it does help if you find some CSEP, some people that are certified, because then they just have to put their number when they do their reference. So that does help and stuff. Oh, I had one more thing I wanted to tell you, but I forgot what it was. Good point there, Dustin, about the class. But do get your application together and try to work that. And then what I suggest you do is take my class, but call Prometrics. Give them a time frame. Say, hey, I want to take the exam 3 months from now. Here, boom. And then take that time to really study. Or maybe you're a good studier and you can do it in a month or something like that. So that would really work out. That's all I have. Look, I'm done. You guys can skedaddle if you want. If you want to hang and talk a little, go ahead and turn your mic on. I'll answer any questions, or of course, right into the thing. I hope this was helpful. I really appreciate your time, and do sign up for my course.